What's going on, everyone? It's Mike back again, and more transfers really to talk about today. And I'm going to go in depth in this one. I'm going to go in depth. I'm just double checking something before I completely chat shit to you all. But yeah, I want to talk about a particular individual. I want to talk about Luca Dean and Ross Barkley. Luca Dean has been linked with various moves, one to Juventus, which weirdly was included yet again with Aaron Ramsey. It's like a running theme, Aaron Ramsey, through these videos, in a swap deal. Look, that won't happen. It doesn't make sense. The other one was Kusamneski. I know I've murdered that surname, but you get who I'm saying. And look, I think that's gone very quiet. He's a player that I like, but I think it's gone very quiet. So you then look at alternatives, and Everton don't have loads of money to play with. We know that. We don't have, due to financial fair play. But there's lots of players on the books that have 6 months left on their contract. Gylfi Sigurdsson, John Joe Kenny, Cenk Tosun, just to name a few. There is a few others. Fabian Delph, I think, is another one. So big earners are coming off the wage bill in the summer. So when you look at where Everton are right now, it kind of does make sense to sell Luca Dean at 25 million, because that's how much we paid on Michaelenko, who will be joining us on January the 1st, I believe. Great, brilliant stuff. So we're bringing that money. We've obviously saved on wages for players like James Rodriguez and, you know, various other players that were left at the start of the season. So again, good. So all of a sudden we do have not loads of money to play with, but we've got a little bit of breathing room where we can sign players and pay fees over 4 or 5 year periods, which is what we're doing with Michaelenko. I believe it's a 4-year payment plan. A bit like Klarna Pay. But what it does mean is Everton are being linked with players that may be players that we could do with. And this one particular player, Ross Barkley, has been linked with Everton now. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind Everton need a ball-carrying midfielder. No doubt. His injury record concerns me. I think his injuries, even at Everton, his injuries were bad. If you go back all the way to when he was 16, he had that bad leg break, if you remember. Come back stronger, better, and really kicked on. And Ross Barkley at one point, between sort of, I'd certainly say between 2000 and whatever the Martinez season was that 14-15? The first one we finished 5th. I think Ross Barkley was as good as any ball-carrying central midfielder in the world at that point. I really do. I think he was absolutely amazing. He was fantastic, and he worked so well with Romelu Lukaku. And it's funny, really, how that hasn't worked, and that actually hasn't even been, I don't think it's even been tried due to injuries or whatever, by Tuchel, but it worked at Everton for a decent period of time. And Ross Barkley made 150 appearances for Everton, scoring 21 goals, which surprised me a little bit. I actually thought he scored more goals than that in 150 appearances, because I seem to remember one season he getting 8 or 9. I remember he captained the side. And Ross Barkley was a player that I fully backed. You know, I had all the time in the world for Ross Barkley. I really did. I really hoped that he would be the next, you know, the next Wayne Rooney. I remember sitting there with a friend. I remember talking about Ross Barkley at 17, 18, 19 years old, saying, look, this kid is as good as Rooney. And he never was. Like, he never was. You know, he sort of was put into that bracket. I genuinely felt like he was the next English lad who was going to, you know, be the sort of the top man. And he never did it. He never did it. He completely underachieved, in my opinion. And, you know, Ross Barkley is not a bad player. He's made 33 appearances for England. He scored 6 goals. He's not a bad player whatsoever. But what he is incredibly inconsistent. This is a kid that, you know, I know, weirdly, by the way, lots of people have different opinions about Ross, whereas I just don't like him. I don't like the way he left. I don't like what happened. And, you know, people say, you know, he left Everton for various different reasons, and he didn't cost the club 20 million by not leaving in the summer, but he left for 15 million in January. He could have left the summer after for nothing. You know, all of that rubbish. I think the simple fact of the matter is he didn't want to play for Everton Football Club. You know, that love that I think he had for the club, I'm not saying disappeared, but I think being a fan and a spectator and a family supporter is very different to being a player. And it wouldn't surprise me if Tom Davies is falling into that category now, unfortunately for him. But Ross Barkley left, and I don't see why us as a football club should go and give lifelines to players. You know, Ross Barkley is now, what, 27 years old, 28 years old. This is a kid that, for different reasons, is a player that almost would come back, and I don't feel like people would get excited about it. I don't feel people would be open arms about it. I don't feel like this is a player that I want back. I don't want Ross Barkley back. Like, that's me being honest. I don't want him back. And, you know, I can sit there and I can be as poignant as I want. And yes, when he breaks the lines from midfield to up front to the strikers, yes, he can look fantastic. He can beat players left, right and centre. You know, he did it against Newcastle in that game. He beats pretty much the entire team and smashes it with his left foot. He also ripped Newcastle apart the season before when we won 3-0, or 3-1, sorry, or 3-2. We were 3-0 up at half-time, and him and Lukaku just absolutely decimated them. You know, we've seen the best Ross Barkley, in my opinion. Everton had the best Ross Barkley, and we're not getting that now. We're not getting that player. You know, there's people say, and you see it a lot on Twitter and Facebook, about jobs for Boyz and Ken Wright, and you know, and how Everton don't move forward. They're not aggressive enough. You know, we don't release players when we should. We keep players playing until they're rotten, essentially. And you know, you sort of you finish being a hero, sort of thing. When I sit there and look at Ross Barkley, he won't come back and be a hero, and he certainly won't come back. And I'll back any player that puts on a blue shirt. I really will. But I just think it's going to be very quick for Everton fans to realise that this isn't the same Ross Barkley we had 5 years ago. And it's just not. So that's my concern with Ross. Ross is someone that is completely changed. He's desperate for a move. He looked like it was going to work out at Villa and then didn't. If you're bringing him in on loan, I can live with that. But if they're suggesting a swap deal for Luca Dean, Chelsea can fuck off. They can get lost. They're on a different planet, because Luca Dean is a good player. Yes, he might not have had the best 18 months, and lots of people on here all of a sudden have started criticising Luca Dean and all hate him, and you know, he hates the blue shirt, he hates us. Maybe he just hates Rafa Benitez, and maybe he's not the only one. You know, maybe he didn't fit in with Carlo's style. But there's two sides to every story, and I'm not defending or co-defending, but what I'm saying is Luca Dean is a better footballer than Ross Barkley, and has been more consistent, even when he's been on his bad patch, than Ross Barkley has, by a country mile. You know, Luca Dean, before he was dropped out of the team, was up there for defending this season in terms of stats. Like, Google it now. Like, go and Google it. Before he was dropped, he was third or fourth defender in the league. Now, I'm not saying that's a good return for a player that's more of a wing back and should be getting assists and going forward, which is what he likes to do. And he does get exposed defensively, and he isn't the best defender. But he still is more consistent than Ross Barkley. So it's a really weird argument for me, this whole Ross thing. And yeah, I'm not keen. I'm not keen on him coming in. He's played 57 times for Chelsea, scored 4 goals. He went out on loan to Villa, played 24 times and scored 3. This is a guy that scored less than 40 goals in his career as an attacking central midfielder in 12 years. It's not great. It's not great, and I know he's had his injuries, and this is why I won't sit there and drop him, like dig him out or anything, but I don't want Ross Barkley anywhere near my football team. And then when I look at it, when you've got people like the Echo making articles, and the tagline here is Ross Barkley return makes more sense than Everton fans want to admit. It doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense whatsoever. It's just, again, the red shite paper trying to get Everton to sign players that they can essentially just laugh at. Ross Barkley's gone back to Everton. What does that say about you as a football club? It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And, you know, I really don't think we should be making moves for players like Ross Barkley. I actually think it should be players like Loftus-Cheek, who I think is a more all-round better player, can carry the ball, can defend, and I think he's a better player than Ross Barkley. But that's just my very humble opinion. Another player that Everton have been linked with is Omar Colley, £8 million Sampdoria defender, 29 years old. Got experience, played in at a decent level. 8 mil isn't a lot of money for a centre-half. I must say, I don't know massive amounts about this player, but what I've seen, YouTube, like, everyone looks amazing on YouTube. I could put a compilation on how I'm the best footballer on YouTube, and I'm not. But from what I've seen, he's physical, he's strong, he's prepared to head a ball. He doesn't necessarily like playing from the back too much, but he reminds me a little bit of, like, no, you see, Jagiel could play ball, could pass, because he was a midfielder originally. Maybe a Joseph Yobo. You know, someone who would have the ball to feet and could play it left and right, but had a rick in him, had a mistake in him, and he reminds me of that. He reminds me of a player that, you know, Funes Mori. You'd hate him taking a touch. You'd constantly be shitting your pants. But that's probably what this kid would do to me. So I don't know if I'm feeling that, to be honest. And then in terms of other players, there's, as I said at the start of the video, there's players at Everton that could leave just because their contracts are up. You know, Fabian Delph probably falls into that category. If somebody needs a centre midfielder and prepared to pay £1 million, I think that you could probably take Fabian Delph. Even a free, just to get him off the wages. I think Everton would do that. So I expect this window to be fairly busy. I do think Everton will bring in players, which is different than normal. I don't think Everton have signed any notable players in January, probably since Allardyce, Tosson and Walcott come in. I can't think of any others. There may well, but Everton under Marcel Brands notoriously have a quiet January. Well, I remember last season saying I think we needed, at the time, I think I wanted us to bring in a centre midfielder and a right back, and we bought no one. Or did we bring in Sidibe? I can't remember. But what I'm saying is, we need to bring in players because, you know, it's a bit of a mess at the minute. Everton are 15th in the league, albeit we've got 2 or 3 games, you know, to play, which is a point I will make in a minute. We need to pick up points, and we need players who can do that. And Michaelenko will come in at left back, and I'm sure he'll pretty much play straight away, especially with rumours that Yuri Mina may be off as well. Luca Dean, possibly Chelsea or Inter Milan, a club like that. Chelsea makes sense to me. I think they've got 25 million in their back pocket, and I think he'd go to Chelsea happily. I actually think he'd do well at Chelsea as well. I think we need a right back, and we've been linked. Again, we've been linked with Patterson. Alan Hutton come out, I think, today and said that he thinks it's going to cost £10 million plus for him. And a few people have said to me, why are we going, you know, sort of balls deep for a right back that can barely get in the Rangers side? And that's because the player in front of him is pretty good as well. Tavernier, who's very experienced right back, knows the Scottish League well. Patterson is an international, has played in Europe, has probably got all the attributes to be a good right back. Plus he's young, he can learn from Seamus Coleman. So it's again Everton targeting these younger players and going, yeah, you fit the bill, which is something that I would love us to do more of. You know, we bring in players that need to prove a point, and this is a kid who's young enough
to learn from Seamus Coleman and go and prove a point in the Premier League. I am good enough to be a Premier League player. You know, stuff like that. That's exactly the sort of mentality that I want to see from new Everton signings. So I'm all over that. I'm all for that. And if it's going to cost 10 million quid, well, again, I think Everton can probably stretch to that as long as we get either a decent loan fee for Lucas Digne or Lucas Digne goes. The wages are going to be nowhere near what Lucas Digne's paid. So 10 million quid I don't think is unrealistic. The issue you've got is we've just agreed to spend 20 million quid on a left back, which we didn't even know we needed a left back until this whole fallout with Lucas Digne happened. So it's difficult for me. I also think there will be a centre midfielder loaned, and it really wouldn't surprise me if it was Ross Barkley. I just don't want it to be. However, maybe Rafa can get a tune out of him. We're currently sitting 15th in the league, and I've only picked up, I think, 7 points in, 12 games. But what was we on? Was we on 12 points after 5 games this season, and we're currently on, 19 after another 10. I mean, it's not great. So, I think that's what I think will happen. I think it'll be a left back, a right back, and a midfielder. And it wouldn't surprise me if we do bring a centre half in, but only if one leaves. Which could be Holgate or Mina or both, and if that's the case, we need 2. So, yeah, January will be busy. Deadline day will be exciting this year. And obviously news that broke yesterday is the Everton-Newcastle game is off. And there's a lot of Everton fans unhappy about this. And again, I'm going to play devil's advocate because I'm not... Health and safety, no. Health and safety can be a bit much. But the safety of people and players is paramount. You know, fans going to stadiums and the players on the pitch. You know, look, I don't massively look into the COVID rules and Omicron and stuff like that. But what I can tell you is I had Omicron over Christmas. Well, I had COVID over Christmas. And it was like a cold. There was no... There was no major side effects to it whatsoever, apart from the fact I didn't go out for a week. It completely ruined Christmas, which is what I didn't need after I just lost Grandad. So I was very emotional on Christmas Day. But what I'm saying is, you know, you also don't want to put players in a situation where they are overworking and they're not able to play at an okay level. Newcastle have played 4 games in 2 weeks. If they'd have played the Everton game. And that's a lot. Like, that is a lot. With COVID, so whatever COVID issues they've got to have a few players off with COVID. Then they've got the injuries on top. We said exactly the same thing for the game against Burnley. Like, we said we had issues with injuries and we had COVID problems. I don't think there was much of a stink about it. But there seems to have been a stink because Newcastle have got this money now, and when we play them, we'll be able to play a field stronger team or whatever. This Newcastle team played really good against a very shit Man United side. A Man United side that we got a draw against at Old Trafford and should have won. Newcastle were no different. Newcastle are a poor side. They were a poor side last season when they beat us twice. So, it almost doesn't matter if they bring in players or not. I don't know what they're looking at. I don't know. You know, they're not going to be able to bring in fantastic players. They might bring in fighters that potentially could keep them up. I'm not worried about what Newcastle look like in 6 weeks' time when we have to replay them. Like, I'm really not. I think this is going to be a Newcastle side that are going to be relegated. And I don't mean that as a criticism to Newcastle fans. I just think that the job Eddie Howe was left was far too big, and Eddie Howe was not the right manager for the job. Timing shit, yeah, agreed. But there's nothing you can do about it. Like, it's just unlucky on our part. You know, equally, you could say Everton have got 2 home games against Leicester and Newcastle, and an away game against Burnley as the 3 games in hand. And on paper, when Everton are back firing on all cylinders and have that full team, which we will have by the time we play these games, touch wood, you like to think we win all of them irrespective. Like, Leicester are a good side and they beat Liverpool last night. But at home, Everton should be beating 19 clubs in the Premier League. You know, and I say that for any side who have got ambitions of Europe. Any team who are at home should be at least aiming for 19 home wins. That's your bread and butter. So we should be beating Leicester, we should be beating Newcastle, and we should be going away and beating Burnley as well, because Burnley aren't great either. But look where we are. So what I'm saying is, I think it's very easy for Everton fans to criticise the news, the situation. But exactly the same thing happened to us against Burnley. I'm sure Burnley would have loved to have played Everton with 6 first-teamers out, 5 players that would usually be sitting on the bench out due to COVID. Whatever the side would have looked like. I'm sure Burnley would have loved it, and we wouldn't have, because we'd have felt like we'd been fucked, which we did. We kicked up a right stink about it. So I don't understand the fuss with this Newcastle game. And anything, I hope the players get well soon. And I hope COVID hasn't affected the club too much. And I would say that for every single club in the league, irrespective of timing about when we're playing, because health and life is far more important than the 90 minutes of football. And over the last 3 weeks, I've learned that pretty hard. So, yeah, I'm leaving it there. That was a very passionate little rant there at the end, wasn't it? So, yeah, guys, look, I'm sorry it's so long tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the video. It's been a very just informative and it's just quick, straight down the line. Yeah, I'll see you for the next video, which, I mean, we've got Brighton coming up. Who knows what will happen with that game, but yeah, we'll see. Guys, I'm leaving it there. Have a good one. Keep smiling and up the toughest. Peace.